And welcome everybody to the Huddle, King of Nine's weekly streaming sports talk show. I'm Jason Barr, joined by Pat Parris. Pumped up today, Pat, because what a night it was last night at McHale Center. You were there for the Arizona Wildcats.
That was me. That was me.
Iowa
I just
State.
want to prove to everybody. It's on my phone. I got lots of pictures and some videos too. I didn't post it. I was too excited, so I reposted a lot of Arizona basketball stuff last night on Instagram. But man, was that fun! That was, Jason, the loudest moment I've heard ever personally at McHale.
Special moment at McHale. Caleb Love, 55-foot shot to tie the game at the end of regulation, send it into overtime, where he hit a couple more three-pointers and knocked off third-ranked Ohio State. Caleb Love actually wasn't the best player of the game for Arizona. We'll get to that. It was Toby Awaka for sure. But it did come on a buzzer beater. That's what everybody's talking about. That's the exciting play. It leads us to our Huddle Poll question, which we start with every week. We thought we'd have some fun here, Pat, and go with, what is your favorite all-time Arizona basketball buzzer beater? Now, going to explain the four here. Obviously, we know what Caleb Love did with a 55-footer last night against Iowa State. Okay. 1996 was Miles Simon's half-court shot, more than half-court shot for Lute Olson's 500th win. This is going to get a lot of votes at Cincinnati, a game on KGUN 9. 2005. Now, we want to make sure we've got the right one here. This is Salim Stoudemire's buzzer beater at ASU, where Lute Olson won his 305th Pac-10 game, surpassing John Wooden. They also won the conference that year with the sweep of ASU. It's not the Sweet 16 buzzer beater because that wasn't a buzzer beater. There was still a couple of seconds left on the clock. And then the other one from which you can choose, you can vote on Twitter and on our website. Way back in the day, Eddie Smith, 1984. This was a buzzer beater at ASU. First time I think the Wildcats had either won at ASU or swept ASU in a long, long time. But a lot of people feel like that was the shot that set off the Lute Olson dynasty. So, we may not remember it. Some of us weren't too young at the time. I get it. But that was a pretty big shot. So those are your four. Pat, do you have a vote for your Huddle poll Huddle favorite here?
Well, my emotions runneth over, so I gravitate right away towards A, and then when I start thinking about it a little bit more, I actually went with, when I just voted a moment ago, I went with Miles Simon for a couple of reasons.
I think that's what most people are going with.
Yeah, and it was not that listen, Caleb Love's is going to go down depending on what they do from here. You follow me? If Caleb Love turns a season around and it really is a springboard for him and the team starts playing better, we're going to remember this as a moment in time that changed the direction of this season and perhaps, bigger and better things beyond. But why I went with and here's the Caleb Love shot from last night. Arizona basketball having a little fun today. They got out the tape measure and they've got it right about 53 feet 3 inches is where they're putting the spot. So you can say 54 feet, whatever it was. But the reason why I voted, Jason, to answer your question, the reason why I voted for Miles Simon 1996, and here's that one. You see, he shot it just before the opposing team's three-point line. Turns out to be about 65 feet. And it came in such a big time to get Lute's 500th win. But it was really the beginning signature moment that led to the next year, I think, Miles Simon helping lead that team to the national championship. So this was basically 1 year before they ended up winning the national championship in 1997. So I think it was a huge moment that springboarded them into the greatest team accomplishment ever in Arizona basketball history. Can the Caleb Love thing be the same thing? Sure, it could. But we'll have to wait and see. History will tell how good the Caleb Love shot ends up being in some ways, if you follow me.
I do think I think it's for now, the Miles Simon shot. I voted D, Eddie Smith, just to give him a vote. I was afraid he wasn't going to get too many votes there. So I did that. But I do think it's got to be the Miles Simon. I didn't realize he was at before the 3-point line there of the opposing team. So yeah, if you want to take degree of difficulty into it, I think his was a little bit more luck than Caleb Love's.
Yeah,
Caleb Love really lined that shot up. Yeah. I mean, obviously it's luck anytime you hit one of those shots.
Yeah, and
but
remember,
I think Miles Simon was more of a heave.
Yeah,
and this was a heave, but I think he had a moment to line it up.
Right. And now you're making an argument for both of us to go the other way, because Miles Simon's shot, remember, it was a tie ball game. If he misses that, they go to overtime. No big deal. If Caleb Love doesn't line this up perfectly and hit the back of that rim and go straight down, then it's over and you lose. You lose
Right.
to the number 3 team in the country, as everybody expected you were going to. A lot of people thought you would. So, I can make the argument that Caleb Love deserves it, but I did vote for Miles Simon.
All right, we'll take a look later in the show before we leave you at the results of our poll. You can do it on X or kgun9.com/poll. Okay, as for the game, the player of the game, Caleb Love hit the great shots, but the player of the game, Pat, is Toby Awaka. He has been a beast the last couple of games.
These last 2 games.
17 and 12. He is, you may not know this because you were at the game. Wait to hear what they said on the broadcast. According to Ken Pom, Pat, he's the best offensive rebounder in the nation.
I didn't know that, but that doesn't surprise me. You saw him absolutely dominate an Iowa State team that is super physical and never gets dominated on the glass like that. His ability to put back the misses, because let's be honest, Arizona was not shooting the ball well last night at all. And if it weren't for Tobe Awaka, they don't even get close to a 3-point shot to tie it with no time left. So, he was definitely a man among boys. And I think he typifies what we're seeing now that Arizona has moved into the Big 12, of what you've got to have in order to succeed. If you don't have Tobe Awaka, you're in big trouble. If you're Arizona basketball, you're not making this transition to the most physical conference in America well at all. You would really be struggling. And it just so happens that when they needed him most, he's playing his best right now.
I hope it's not just a hot streak. I hope this is something that's going to continue because this is a different player than the player earlier in the year who was getting himself into foul trouble and wasn't dominant on the boards and kind of didn't have that much touch around the hoop. This guy's, hitting buckets and making his layups and just an absolute force in there. And then they almost couldn't have him out of the game the last couple of games. He was such an impact player, and they don't have a body like that. They really need him in there. He has just done a terrific job. The other player, Pat, who I'm kind of thinking about a little bit is, and then they were talking about this on the broadcast, Carter Bryant, they say he's going to be a first-round pick. Well, here's a first-round pick, and, he's coming off the bench, and he's not playing that many minutes. And, I know for him to play more minutes, you got to take it from someone else like Del Orso or Townsend. But I don't know. You got to find a way to give this guy a couple more minutes because when he's in there,
I think so too.
You see that potential.
Yeah. By the way, we got a couple of great comments here. One from Pamela Fisher. We were at last night's game. OMG, what an electrified McHale. It really was. And I'm in agreement with you about Carter Bryant, but when Carter Bryant's had his opportunities, that guy is money. He has got such a pure shot, and he hits those elbow jumpers. In that Colorado game, he was hitting a couple of the key in the NBA, Jason, is when you are open, you got to hit your shots. And he hits his shots. So I think he has the athleticism. I think he has the ability. I just don't think he has enough minutes at the college level right now.
And he makes a couple freshman mistakes here and there.
He does make mistakes occasionally. He got into foul trouble last night when he didn't need to get into foul trouble. And
story for another day. But boy, I wish he would just do a second year here because he'll be so good next year.
I do too. And maybe if
he's not ready for the NBA.
If he finds out he's not a first round pick, maybe he'll fall down. He'll come back for another year to move his way back up in as far as draft stock goes. By the way, Jason, I heard this comment last night, and I totally agree with it. And maybe you'll agree with it too. That was the most physical game that Arizona basketball has played since the 2002 final Sweet 16 game against Houston that they lost. Do you agree with that? I do.
In what sense?
In the sense that they had to play a team that was so physical and so swarming defensively, and they had to be physical and swarm defensively themselves. They matched Iowa State pretty much the entire game through with the steals and the physicality underneath. In fact, you can make the argument that Tobe Awaka was the better of all of the big guys inside on rebounding. And that's what their downfall was against Houston. They couldn't match the physicality, and they
It's
couldn't
more
match.
one player though in Awaka than it is a whole team being physical. You know, I don't
Yeah,
look at the other
but
players on
look
the
at the
team and go,
guards.
"Wow,
Look
like
at
these are
the
physical Carter Bryant did rip the ball out
yeah,
from one of the players.
and
He had a good play like that. I do remember.
physicality doesn't mean inside, Jason. It's outside. It's out front too, and the stopping the drives. And then when the Iowa State guards, they like to penetrate, and we're in there physically ripping the ball out of it. I mean, Iowa State had what, 15, at least 15
Okay, I
turnovers.
was thinking more underneath the
18.
basket. If you put it
Iowa
that way,
State,
I get you. Yeah,
Iowa State had 18 turnovers.
yeah.
18 turn. I'll guarantee Iowa State had 18 turnovers in a game in 3 or 4 years. I mean, that I can remember. And I watched a lot of Iowa State because of my kids haven't gone there and all that stuff. So anyway, but I was impressed. I thought that we've seen the progression of Tommy Lloyd's Arizona basketball teams now get to the level where they can play against an Iowa State. We think they can play against Houston. We'll find that out in a couple of weeks. But we knew that was going to be trouble. Remember, we went to that game in 2002, the tournament, and we both went, this is a tough match. 2022.
Well, let's not get too euphoric here, Pat. They got outplayed by Iowa State down the stretch, and Tommy Lloyd even said so. They went to overtime on a 50-foot shot.
Now let's not go overboard and say, oh, they were just throttled and they didn't have a chance. They methodically, Iowa State methodically opened that lead up to 3 and then 4, and then Arizona tried to, and they cut it to 2. Then he hits one of the 2 free throws. I mean, it's not as if they were suddenly down 10 and they had to make a furious comeback. They just watched a 4-point lead at the under 8 timeout whittle down to being actually minus a couple of points by the time we hit the under 1 minute mark.
All right, let's hear, Pat, from Caleb Love and Tommy Lloyd after the overtime win against number 3 Iowa State at McKell Center last night.
Obviously, it wasn't going my way throughout the game, and you got to trust your work. Stay confident in your work. Stay confident in yourself, and it ain't over till it's over.
They were better down the stretch of regulation than we were, and you're just trying to hang in there and give yourself a chance. But a desperation 3 is probably not the chance you're trying to give yourself, but it made for great theater.
Yeah, it certainly did.
Yeah, and listen, the half court buzzer beaters went against them a couple of years ago at a game against ASU.
That's right.
That at the time that didn't actually hurt them that much in the rankings. And this one's not really going to hurt Iowa State, I don't think. They're going to look at it and be like, okay, was that Arizona? They had the game won. It's not like Iowa State's going to take some type of big drop in the polls. That's not going to happen. But you mentioned Arizona moved up in the net rankings, and
they're now
still
11.
unranked. They've got a little time off to digest this, which they may need, and then they go to ASU on Saturday. Got to win that game.
Got to win that. Got to win that.
And if they do that, you'll see them back in the top 25 on Monday.
Yeah, without question. Yeah, they go from 15 to 11 in the net ranking. They go from 16 to 14 in Ken Palm. Iowa State stays at number 6 in the net ranking and stays at number 5 in Ken Palm. Arizona needed that win. Obviously, they needed a signature win. They hadn't had a big-time win this year. They needed that win more to affect them in a positive way than Iowa State is going to be affected negatively by losing that game. That's for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So Arizona basketball, just Jason Barr, Pat Parris here on the Huddle, KGUN 9's weekly streaming sports talk show. Arizona basketball with a big win last night over third-ranked Iowa State at McKell Center. We'll go back to Arizona a little bit and check on the Huddle poll and who's winning that poll. But Super Bowl is set. Pat, I thought we'd take a couple of minutes on the game. And listen, the first game went as how I thought. I thought the Eagles would have their way with Washington. Rookie quarterbacks were 0-5 going to that game in league championship games. I thought that Vic Fangio's defense would have something for Washington. They did. They didn't tackle Barkley well. I'm not surprised on that game. I did have Buffalo upsetting Kansas City, and I think it could have happened. Listen, it's another situation of Kansas City getting the calls, and that Buffalo receiver, Dalton Kincaid, I know they're trying to, not let him take so much heat here, but he needed to catch that ball on 4th down. That is the difference between a championship and a non-championship. And when you look in history, Pat, of wide receivers who have made plays like that, whether that be Julian Edelman, whether that be David Tyree, whether that be the Giants in the first Super Bowl against the Bills, the play the receiver made on 3rd and long, whether it be the Jackie Smith drop in the end zone for the Cowboys against the Steelers. Receivers have got to make the Mario Manningham catch for the Giants. Receivers have got to make big catches. And was that an easy catch? No, I don't care, though.
No.
You have to make that catch. And he
No.
makes that. Buffalo's in good
I
shape
could,
to at least tie the game.
yeah, I could make the argument that that you got to have a better throw too. I mean,
Come on. He had 3 guys in his face
it
to get it
doesn't
off.
matter.
That
You
good
keep you say that a guy's got to make a circus acrobatic catch, and you blame him because he didn't make the catch. Then you got to say
it wasn't that circus acrobatic. He had to come back to the ball a little bit.
It was not an easy. It was
It
not
wasn't easy, but it wasn't acrobatic.
But here's the thing, Jason, you're arguing something that should never have come down to that. It never should have gotten to that. There is no question in anybody's mind that the Bills got the first down. Not only did they get the first down on 4th down, they got it on 3rd down.
I don't understand why the 3rd down wasn't reviewed.
I agree. But then again, we know the history of the NFL officiating when the Chiefs are involved. And
Mahomes has become like Jordan in the sense. I remember when the Bulls were playing the Knicks all those years in the playoffs, and they breathed on Jordan and they called a foul.
Yeah.
It's the same thing like with Mahomes.
Yeah. But you
can't take the measurement out.
Yeah. I didn't understand why they didn't have their replay review going on right away with that 3rd down play. And then on 4th down, the spotting of the guy coming in from the top who gave him the first down by a foot, and then the guy coming in the bottom who had it, a full football short was ridiculous. Then they go to the review, and you're like, well, thank goodness they're going to go to the review because that'll show it, and it showed it. And even the analyst, the former referee on the broadcast says, oh, I had him by 3 inches. I had the first down by 3 inches. They come back with the review. No, the review is confirmed on the field. No, it wasn't. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I know who you mean.
The Fox broadcast.
I know who you mean.
But the bottom line is, the NFL officiating is suspect every time the Chiefs now get the ball, every time the Chiefs take the field. It's beyond just a conspiracy now. Now it's now we have to beat the
Gene Steratore. Thank you for our producer.
Steratore, yeah, Gene Steratore. So now we have to beat the Chiefs and we have to beat the referees. It's just getting really tiresome. I've lost all faith in the NFL and their officiating, and I don't care if they come out on Monday and the NFL says, oh, we reviewed it and there was the right call. You can't have the NFL review themselves with any kind of ability to self-regulate and be fair about the whole thing. It's just a joke. And I think more and more people have to get tired of the officiating and the calls. And I don't know what the answer is, Jason, but they can't keep getting every single call because it's getting pretty obvious.
Yeah. We'll dive a little deeper into the Super Bowl next week. And obviously the storyline is whether or not, Kansas City can win 3 in a row. I believe the Packers would have won 3 in a row because they won the year before Super Bowl one, if I'm not mistaken. They would have won the year before
NFL championship game.
Right.
Yeah.
I believe the Lions might have been the 50s. Do I have the right team? So it's happened before, but certainly not in the Super Bowl era.
Not in this era. Yeah.
Bradshaw, Montana, Brady, none of them did it. So we'll see if the Chiefs and Mahomes can do that. All right, let's finish it up here.
Steelers won 4 in 6 years or something like that.
Yeah. And Brady really had 3 Hall of Fame careers. Like the first 3 Super Bowls early in the Patriots' tenure, then the last 3, which were kind of late in there, and then 3 years in Tampa, not enough for a Hall of Fame career, but he almost had 3 Hall of Fame careers in one career. Anyway, let's finish it up with the Huddle Poll question here. Which buzzer beater is your favorite all-time Arizona basketball? Is it Caleb Love last night versus Iowa State? Look, we got a little recency bias. Hey, now wait a second. I voted for Eddie Smith on X. So
this might just be this might just be the numbers from the online KEGA9.com.
Okay, because I voted for Eddie Smith on X.
Just to give him a little love.
Yeah, that's right. Because I didn't want him to get 0. That was the whole point of doing it. Okay, so Caleb Love, look, little recency bias there. Miles Simon at Cincy. I think that's the right answer for a subjective question here. Salim Stoudemire versus ASU. I'm sure some people remember that. And Eddie Smith at ASU, the significance of that is, that kind of, led off the Lute dynasty and had them, I think, sweep ASU for the first time in a long time.
Yeah,
So,
Eddie Smith on Twitter, by the way, Eddie Smith has 5%, so your one vote counted.
yeah.
Caleb, it's very similar though. 50% on X for Caleb Love, 17 for Stoudemire at ASU in 2005, and 28% for Miles Simon, 5% for Eddie Smith. So very similar.
Good stuff. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks to Caleb Love for giving us some good content here today.
Thanks, Caleb Love. I'll say one thing real quick about Caleb Love.
Yeah.
That's a guy that has a lot on his shoulders, obviously. And
he said this was the best moment of his life, Pat.
Yeah, he said best moment of my life. He has a lot on his shoulders. Things don't always go well. He was 1 for 10 before he hits that beyond half court shot. I appreciate somebody that's not afraid of the moment. He doesn't care. He's just going to keep shooting, and he's got the teammates behind him. He's got the coaching staff behind him, and I really appreciate somebody who has a personality that can just quickly turn the page. And by the way, Jason, we haven't talked about it. He was the one who predominantly guarded Curtis Jones, the guard for Iowa State, who is their best player, 18 points a game. They held him to 8.
Yeah.
And most of that was free throw. He had 6 of his 8 points. He was 1 for 11.
Yeah, I know he missed his first 6 shots at least.
Yeah.
We're looking
So
at the box
Curtis
score,
Jones
6.
gets locked down predominantly by Caleb Love, KJ Lewis a little bit as well. But so Caleb Love does more than just take shots a lot. He has really improved defensively this year, and I think we should give him credit for that. Hey, also real quick shout out, Arizona Gymnastics. They just beat Arizona State for the first time since 2016. They did it on Sunday on national TV, Jason. It was on ESPN2. So Arizona Gymnastics having a very good year already.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. We got to leave it there. For Pat Parris, I'm Jason Barr. This has been The Huddle, KGUN9's weekly streaming sports talk show. We'll see you right back here next week, preview the Super Bowl, talk some more Arizona basketball. For now, we'll see you next time.